We are doing today Chav Gimel Meraf. We're gonna have to go quickly. We're still on Chav Beis Amud Beis, but we are up to about in the wide lines, about 10 lines down from the wide lines on Chav Beis Amud Beis, where it says Tana Rabbanan Irshek Yifur Nachem Einar. We have a city that's surrounded by Goyim or by a river. Ve'echat Tzfina Mitarefes Beyam, or if you have a situation where there's a ship that is having some issues in the water. A person that's running away from Goyim or robbers. We're going to put in here the gears of the Marsha on the side. Or a situation where there's some sort of ruach ra. What exactly ruach ra is not 100% clear. Rashi says the shade. There's some sort of demon outbreak. Um, so in all these situations, Masriin b'Shabbos. In all of these situations, the alarm is going to be sounded even on Shabbos. That is part one of the brisa, and then we have a machlokes, and this is the second part of the brisa. The al kulon, and on these cases that we just mentioned, yachid rashoy l'sagif es atzma b'tainis. A yachid is able to put himself into tainus because of these issues that we just talked about. Rabbi Yosef says no, the Yachid is not permitted to misagif himself and make himself fast for these issues. In other words, if a tzibur is going to decide to be misanen, then of course no issue. But a Yachid to do it for these reasons is not appropriate. Then the Gemara says, so that's according to Tanakama, a person is allowed to. Basically, the person is not allowed to. So the Gemara wants to explain why is Rabbi Yosef saying that he's not allowed to. So the Gemara says, a person is going to need help. If he's fasting, he's going to be weak. And the Brias are not going to be helping him out. Rav Yehuda, my Rav. My time of Rabbi Yossi. What's the reason of Rabbi Yossi? Because the Pasuk says in Pasuk, the Siv Adam Nefesh Chaya, a person, when in the creation of the world, Pasuk says that a person is going to be a living being. Neshama that I gave you, you should let live. So the Gemara is mashma that we are essentially saying that there is a machlekes between Tanakam and Rabbi Yossi, but whether or not he offers able to misagif himself, able to torture himself with tinus as a result of these above things. Now, the reason of Rabbi Yossi and the Tanakama, we don't know necessarily the reason the Tanakama says that you're allowed to. Same way the Tzibur is allowed to, Yachid is allowed to. Rabbi says you're not allowed to. Why? Because the pasuk of the Yadam Nefesh Chaya. I gave you an neshama, so hechiyeh, keep it alive. Don't hurt it. Don't hurt it with tinus. Correct place is, remember the Gemara that we had before? Way back on Yad Aleph. Places we had a machlokes there between Rabbi Elazar and Shmuel about whether or not a person who becomes a nazir is considered a chayte or a kaddish, right? And each one brought rise, and we went through a whole arichas there about the opinion of the Rambam, and all of this. Not going to be able to go through it again now. But Tesis asks, I don't understand. We have machlokes Rabbi Elazar and Shmuel. That's machlokes Amiram. Here we have machlokes Tanaim. Why is there machlokes? Here we'll say, is the Yachid able to be misagim himself with tinus? It's a machlokes in Tanakama and Rabbi Yossi. And over there we said that a nazir, if he's taking on himself a tinus, it's a machlokes if he's a good or a bad thing between Shmuel and Rabbi Elazar. So Tais says they're not. We cannot compare these. Are not the same situation. Why? Because over there in this situation of the Amarim, we're going to call that Matzi L'Tzurei Nafshe. He was able to be Mitzayir himself. There's a reason, right? Somebody sees a Sayyidibikul Kula, Madra Atzmin Ayayin. There's a good reason to do so. Here, the Tzibur is not fasting. For whatever reason is, the Tzibur is not fasting. They're not Mingers or Tainus. So you want to go ahead and now take something on? That's not the machlokes between Rabbi Elazar and Shmuel. Rabbi Elazar and Shmuel are only arguing one, there's already an Indian Chazal that a person should put himself in tsar. That is, they see a site the so there we have a basis. You have a whole portion of the Torah of Nazir. So Now we consider that a basis. But here, where the tzibur has decided for whatever reason not to be fasting, and you're deciding to fast, that's not the machlokes of Rabbi Lezer and Shmuel. Over here, even Rabbi Lezer would agree that you shouldn't be doing it. They're only arguing in a situation where it's mati to fast, where we consider that it's mati l'tzurei nafshe. That's when you have the machlokes there of the Amayroim between Shmuel and Rabbi Lezer. Okay, Zot the Gemara. Money Aimer, Afal Dever. Again, we're talking here about Shabbos and what the story is as it relates to Dever. Shimon Atimoni said you fast on the Dever on Shabbos, right? If you remember, that was the Mishnah there back on your test. Shimon Atimoni had said that Afal Dever v'lo hodu Chacham, and the Chacham didn't agree with that. So now the Gemara says. The Gemara says, did the Chacham not agree with him on Shabbos, but they agree with him during the week? Maybe they didn't even agree with him during the week, meaning that even during the week they said that you're not masri in those situations. So it says the Gemara, Tashma, bring your right. The Taanit masri and all that for Shabbos. The Tanakama says in this brisa that you are masriin on the dever even on Shabbos, and obviously if you're doing it on Shabbos, and of course you're going to do it during the week. Rab Chanan ben Pitan, Talmida Rabbi Akiva, Mishum Rabbi Akiva, Emer, Ein masriin ala dever kol ikr. You're not masriin on the dever at all. Now, I just don't understand Pashat the Gemara. If you look back at the Mishnah on your test for a second, if you look back, look at the Mishnah on your test for 1 minute, you go down 3 or 4 lines from the top. What did it say? Right? In a situation when it was a dever or mapoilas. I saw here Misana Masras. That city is Misana Masras. Close to Misana Shalom Masras. Rabbi Kiva Aimer, Masriya is Shalom Misana. It's going to Rabbi Kiva, you're Masriya. So what's Rabbi Chanan ben Pittam saying? He's saying that Rabbi Kiva says you're never masriin on the ear, which is on the ayoris that are surrounding some city that has a dever. You're never masriya. Really? The Mishnah says not that way. So I guess he had a different gear than what Rabbi Kiva held. I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay. Nothing more. I'll call Sarah Shalei Tavai. Right. So so the next one is the what do you call it? Is the next line there in the Mishnah. So the Mishnah says that on other tsaras, right? In general on tsaras, you're also going to be able to fast. The Mishnah says, "Al kol tsar shalei tovei al tzibur masrin alein chutz merav gisham." The Mishnah said on shar tsaras that there could be. We're not listing every single possible tsar. There could be other ones that we won't know. Chas v'shalom, right? So if there is such a tzara, then of course we are masri on those tzaras as well. But not Rev Gishamim. Rev Gishamim, too much rain, we're not going to be masri on. That's not a real tzar. Or I should say, that's not a real tzar to be masri on. Says the Gemara, Al kol tzar shel tov el tzibur, Tana Rabban, Al kol tzar shel tov el tzibur, masri in alel. Klutz Rev Gisham. That's what the Mishnah told us. You're able to masri on. Sound the alarm on all tsaras, even ones that are not listed in the Mishnah, but not Rev Geshamim. My time, why not? Why, if there's too much rain, that's not something to be masri on? Says the Gemara. You don't ask for too much good to stop. Too much good is not the kind of thing that you daven to stop. How do you know that you're not supposed to daven to stop too much good? Shneimar, Aviu as kol meiser as al beso eitzer. At the Navi there it says Malachi, I bring all the meiser. Hashem is saying, test me, test me on this. Hashem says, I'm going to give you so much blessing. But you're not keeping the laws. You're not doing what you're supposed to do with the tithing, etc. So bring it. Right? As we said back on test, right? Answer to answer. The Shema Hashem says, you can test me on it by giving tzedakah. So, Rabbi Yochanan learns that how do you know you're not supposed to daven for getting too much good, in this case too much rain, and say to Hashem, oh, please don't give me so much good. Shneimar, bring all the meiser to the to the mikdash. I believe that Hashem says, I'm going to give you bracha till there's no end. Amarami Barav. I'm going to give you so much bracha that your mouths are going to be tired of saying thank you. right? He's going to be worn out. So Amar Rami bar Rav Yud, right? Rami, the son of Rav Yud, said. Rashi says that was his name. His name was literally Yud. So I'm not so sure that his name was literally Yud. It's an interesting name, right? We have Reish Lakish, right? But there's a Gemara that appears a few times in different places, Beitzim and others, a few places. The guy mentioned Abba Elazar ben Gimel. As far as Gimel, no. Why? Because if you look in the different places that I just mentioned, you'll see one time is Gimel, one time is Gaimel. There's a sefer on the Tanam Vamirim that I mentioned that I really love. So he thinks that maybe it was a Chanichas, it was like a nickname. The real his name was Gamliel or something, and that's how. The Gemara has different versions of it. So it could be his name was something else. His name was Yudelstein. I don't know, but they shortened it to Yud. These things can happen. But Rashi says no. Rashi says Chacham Shishma Yud. Sounds like that was Mamash's name. Either way, so what did Rami Bar Rav Yud say? He wants to make a halachic declaration here that when it comes to the galus, when you're outside of Eretz Yisrael in the diaspora, then it's a situation where you must read for too much rain. But in Eretz Yisrael, not. And fascinatingly, if you look at Shulchan Aruch Tav Kuf Ayin Vav, says the Mechaber, that's the halacha. In Chutz La'aretz, right? In other words, let's say they have a big hurricane coming. Are you allowed to daven in shuls and say, Masrin, we don't want the hurricane to hit Florida, Texas, whatever they hit the hurricanes? Right? We even got a hurricane here, Sandy, some years ago. It was a big hurricane. People died. Are you allowed to daven for that? 100% of Chutz you're allowed to daven for too much rain. You're allowed to daven for that also. No issue with that. But Eretz Yisrael, no. Only Begoyla Masrin says the Mechaber, Achshav is manenu b'tzfas. And Mechaber, remember, comes from Spain. Huh? Yeah, that's later than him. Yeah. They said that's a whole topic. Maybe they wanted to say maybe it came out because of the whole machlekes with the smicha, but and then they said maybe it came out not was because Tzfat became too much of a holy city, and maybe it was because there was too much attention being paid to Tzfat as opposed to Yerushalayim. All sorts of reasons given as to the earthquakes and the fire. There was a few things there. But for our purposes now, says the Mechaber that in Tzfas, they now fast when there's too much rain to stop the rain. Why? Because it's going to be Batem Kivraim. Literally, you get so much rain, the houses fall down, and it's a disaster. Remember, we mentioned a few times already that in Bavel, they had remember, southern part of Iraq. Today, it's not. They're trying to bring it back, I think, but they not fully. This was marsh. A lot of it was marshlands. There was Arabs. They were known as the marsh Arabs. They almost lived like you do in like the wetlands, like you have in what's the south part of Florida? What's it known as there? Everglades, right? Mamish, they're living in the marshes. That's how it was. So for them, a lot of rain, getting too much rain could be, not so good. If the houses are already susceptible, they're low-lying areas, it can be very susceptible. So the chiddush is that with manazeh, says the Mechaber, we're not passing like this Gemara. We are fasting, we're Masriyan even in Eretz Yisrael. And remember, Tzfas is on the mountains, right? It's not like a low-lying Tel Aviv on the beach. It's talking about on the mountains, they were worried about too much rain. Maybe it rains more on the mountains, probably rains more on the mountains than it does in the valleys. But I didn't know that there was such a massive rain. But that's what he says, that we are Masriyan even on rains in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, Zot the Gemara. Tanya Rabbi Hafi, Shana Shekishmei Meruben Anshe Mishmar Sholchan Anshe Maimed. And Bryce tells us that in a year where there's so much rain, that remember we had back in the second parak, right? Remember we talked about the Anshe Mishmar, Anshe Maimed, all of them, right? That was back on Tezvav, right? In the Mishnah there for the second parak. What were the differences, right? You had the Anshe Mishmar, that's the 24 Mishmars of the year. You have the Anshe Beis Av, right? Because each Mishmar is divided into 7 days of the week. Each Mishmar got 2 weeks a year. So in one week and 1 week, they weren't together. So they would come to the Beis Hamikdash for their week, and within their Mishmar there was 7 Batei Avos, and each Beis Av got a different day. So there was Anshe Beis Av, and the Anshe Mishmar would hang around the whole week. So in case the Anshe Beis Av there was a busy day at the Mikdash, so then the rest of the Mishmar can come and help out. And then there was the Anshe Mayim, which was Kahanim Levim Yisrael, that would stand on the side to be doing the davening, etc. They would say things. What this Bryce is saying is that in a year, Shegesh, remember when you have too much rain, So Anshe Mishmar, the Kahanim whose Mishmar it was that week, Shochan Lanshe Mam, they would tell the group of Kahanim that were there to daven, look at the brothers, our Jewish brethren in the diaspora, that we have to daven for them. Their houses shouldn't become their graves because the house could fall down with the too much rain. So the Mar asks, they asked Belezer, how much rain should fall that we're going to be able to start davening and it should stop falling? He's going to stand in a place. Both Rashi Taisus, remember these are all these are Pirish Taisus. So the Taisus says, and Rashi says that there was a place called Karen Afel. I'm not exactly sure. It literally means that like the corner was very dark, but it was a sort of a massive cliff, very high up. And if the rain would get over there, so you would must be sloshing around in the rain on this very high place, then you should be davening. Meaning a significant amount of rain has to come about before you start davening. Does the really? The Tanya Yada, but then we have a verse that says that your hands would be sloshing around in the rain. The Gemara says Raglav Kiyadav Kamina, meaning the hands like the feet. Basically, you have a significant amount of rain, way more than the normal amount. So you're literally sloshing around. I mean, it's hard to imagine that we say literally Karen Afel, some very high place, was literally getting water. That would look at the next Gemara. We'll see what Rabbi Barachana says about this place. Amar Rabbi Barachana, L'di Chazia li Karen Afel. He says, I've seen this place. Remember, Rabbi Barachana, all the Gemara's about Basra, right? He's seen some amazing places. He says, I was at this, this Karen Afel, the Kama Utaya. There was some Arab, Kirach Gamel, he was riding a camel, so a camel is very high, right? And he's carrying some big spear. Mischazi Inva, right? And he's looking like a Mashas Tailas. He looks like a worm. I mean, right? Like the Empire State Building. That's how the Karen Afel is. That's what we're saying. The rain has to be coming there. Come on. Obviously, we don't mean that. We mean to say, try to give you a guzma, that a very significant amount of rain, you know what the kind of rain that is, that can start ruining the foundations of homes. That's when you should be davening for the stoppage of the rain. And you can daven for that in the Chutzlars and in Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, even though we have the idea that you're not supposed to be davening on Rev Geshamim, we do have situations, clearly even in Eretz Yisrael, when we're able to daven, that there's too much good, we want that to be stopped as well. Nothing more. Yeah. And I should just say to you that when we're going to see in the Mishnah, in the Gemara soon, but if you look back at the Mishnah for a second on your test, you'll see that when Chene Magal was davening for the rain, right? So it initially coming down small, then it was coming down very powerful, and then it came down, in a nice way, but it was coming down consistently, it didn't stop. As the people came to him, they said to Chene Magal the same way you daven that the rain should come. Maybe you should daven that the rain should go. So Amalem Tsuru im Nimches Even Atayim. Go see if this Even Atayim, remember there was a big stone where people would announce the lost and found and things like that. Go see if that stone is wet. Right? Because remember, the people had come from Yerushalayim to the Har Bayis. We discussed that when we did the Mishnah on your test. We discussed that the Yerushalayim higher than the Beis Hamikdash. Sounded like in the Mishnah, Beis Hamikdash was higher than Yerushalayim. All that we did. That's so good. Not for now, but for our purposes now. He's worried about this Evan Nimchas, right? The Evan Atayin, if it's Nimchas. If this stone is already, starting to be getting wet, that means the rain is too much. We gotta daven for the rain. What do you see from this Mishnah? You see that Chayei Mag was not worried about davening to stop the rain. He wasn't worried about davening because it's too much good. There's a clear right from the Mishnah. He was willing to do it. The Mishnah doesn't say that he did it. Here we don't have that in the story, but it's clear that he was willing to do so, which means that maybe this would be a raya. The Mechaber doesn't say, but maybe it's a raya to Mechaber that even in Eretz Yisrael, you're able to what? Daven al Reiv Tova. It's too much rain. We can stop it. So again, it's not clear from the Mechaber what the source was, but I think maybe the source is right here in the Mishnah about Chayei Mag. All right. So it's not the Gemara. Tan Rabbanon v'nosati gishmechem bi'itam. Right, this is a pasuk in Parashat, right? If the Jews are going to do well, they're going to do right. So it's going to get the rain bi'itam. What's bi'itam? The proper time. What does it mean getting rain in the proper time? Loi shikura, right? V'loi tzimeya. Not to be a drunk, not to get too much rain. and not too little rain. Elevatiness, just the right amount. She closed munch like a shem merubin. Right. If you end up having too much rain, mitashin is haaretz. Paris. The ground becomes so muddy, and it's not going to take away the Paris. I'm going to say this, but I really probably shouldn't. But in any event, don't hold it against me because it just occurred to me, and I say things that occur to me. So, this is what I was raised was the reason. Maybe the Hungarians have different opinions about the Polish Hasidim, but nevertheless, you never notice that the Ger Hasidim they walk around with their pants picked up, and you wonder what is the reason. So I was told again growing up that in Gór in Poland, the area that they lived was very very muddy, so you didn't want to get the pants dirty, so they picked up the pants, and it became a thing that you always put your pants up. I don't know if it's true or not, but the Gemara here is suggesting that if you get too much rain, the ground becomes very muddy, and then the Ve'enim appears. That's not good. It's not helpful. To get too much rain is not going to help the pears grow. Remember what we said before about Gesham Nekam Brazia, right? Strong rain, right? That's good for the pears, but it's not good for the tzmachim. There's different things that need different kinds of rain. So the Gemara is saying that if there's too much rain, it makes the ground all muddy and doesn't really help anything grow. So it's not really such a bracha. Obviously, it's a bracha for water to have enough water, sure, but not to have enough food. Davar acher, what does it mean? When a sadik yishmechem beitam doesn't mean that it's not going to be just too much water. As we turn the page to Chav Gimel Aleph, Davar acher, what does it mean that Hashem is going to give the appropriate amount of rain? Beitam belele revius belele shabbos on its proper times on the night of Wednesday, meaning on Tuesday night, and on Friday night. She came with Sinbi Meshim Shetach. She yerd lam gesham belele revius belele shabbos. During the times of Shem Shetach, the Jewish people were doing really well, and Easter in the appropriate times, which is the night. Tuesday night and Friday night. The mamash tachitim were so big, they were like kidneys, right? The barley was like the size of an olive pit. The adashim were the size of dinarim. But dugmal adaris, and the mamash they took some of these and tried to save them for generations. Like to show you what sin causes. The pasuk says in Yirmiyah. But when you do sin, it takes away the type, it takes away the good. So they were so blessed that the fruit of Eretz Yisrael, like the fruit that by the time of the spice, it was so big, it was so delicious, it was so luscious, because of the fact that the Jews have been doing really well. And what is the Gishma Nasati Gishmechem B'ita means that it rained on the Tuesday night and the Friday night. What is the point of Tuesday night and Friday night? Because people weren't traveling on Tuesday night and Friday night. Tuesday night and Friday night, they were staying and hanging at home. Why? Friday night, because it was Shabbos. Tuesday night, why? Because the Gemara Pesach and Kufiyud Beis. Rashi and Tesis here on it's called Beis and Beis, but both say the same thing about the Igros Bar Machla. Igros Bar Machla was some sort of a demon, and she was known to be with her retinue hanging out on Tuesday night. So you wanted to avoid her, and therefore stay home. Again, I'm not getting into the Sugya of Shadim again, but here's another example, right? We had Ruach earlier, which according to Rashi means a shade, according to Ramah, perhaps doesn't mean a shade. But again, I don't have time to really get into what Ruach means. But it certainly does show that at that time they were certainly much more concerned about Shadim, and therefore the Gemara is adducing it as a reason to explain this pasuk of Nasati Yishmechem Be'ita. But what will come out then is that either the Nasati Yishmechem Be'ita means the echos, the countless of the rain, how much rain you're getting, or when you're getting the rain. So you're getting the rain in the proper dates. Right? The dates that's not going to impede or in any way inhibit the travel. Yeah, so it says the Gemara, right, during the days of Herod, we found this unbelievable situation that what? Remember the Gemara beginning of Basra, the Gemara over there says that Herod, he was a horrible person, a horrible human being, but he was a great builder, perhaps the greatest builder in his generation. I think that's muskam even by the Geshe historians. Unbelievable builder, right? We know from what he built in terms of Masada, Herodium, the Beis Hamikdash, the Mars Machpelah, right? The big installations in Caesarea, Beit Shan, and these are all Herod. This is all Herod. Unbelievable builder. But he tried to be marrying himself off to the daughter of the Chashmonaim. She jumped off the roof and said, "I'm the last one. he's a slave, right? He kept her body in honey. The Gemara says crazy stuff. Anyhow, among the things that he did was that he killed all the Talmidei Chacham. He thought they were rebelling against him. And there was one guy that he left alive. His name was Bava Ben Buta, who he blinded. And he one time dressed himself up, says the Gemara, as somebody else to try to have Bava Ben Buta curse him out, Herod. And Bava Ben Buta refuses. And he's so impressed by this Bava Ben Buta, is that I have a big regret. I destroyed I killed all Chacham. What can I do to make it better? So he says to him, Bava Ben Buta says, look, you kill all Talmidei Chacham, it's very hard to make any amends over that. But at least maybe you can make amends and bring a light to the world if you make a beautiful Beis HaMikdash. And so he does. And he destroys the Beis HaMikdash from the time of Ezra and rebuilt it. And rebuilt it amazingly. The Gemara says that if you didn't see the Beis HaMikdash, you literally never saw a beautiful building. You never saw. This is considered one of the most beautiful buildings in the world at its time. Yeah, so it says the Gemara, during the days of Hordish, right, the next day after the rain fell, the winds would blow, there'll be no more clouds, the sun would shine, they would go out to do the work, and they knew they were doing God's work. Why? Because the rain that would come at night was gone by day, and they were able to have a full day's of work. So at night when no one's traveling, it rained, and by the way, I think like my gardener always says, make sure you water it at night. Don't water it by day. Why? Because when you water by day, the sun is very hot, and it's going to take away the moisture, and it's not going to have a chance to really penetrate the ground. So you want the geshen to be yaira, right? You want it to be able to get in the ground. That happens best at night when it's coolest, so the evaporation is least. It gives it the most chance to be able to actually get in. So it's not just simply the best time in terms of travel, the best time for people, but it's actually the best time for the ground itself to be watering the ground at night. Yeah. Fine. So now we have basically a repeat of the story that we had in the Mishnah. We'll run through it. This is the story again of Cheni Magal with a few more details. Most of Adar had passed, and Ramesh had not had rain that year, but they had a secret weapon. They asked him to please daven. So he davened and it didn't work. Right, uga here is a circle, doesn't mean a cake. Right, so he makes a circle around himself, and he stands in there. Like the Navi Chavak did al Mishmarti and Maido. He said, "I'm going to stand here on my watch. There's Yatz Val Motza. I'm going to stand here until I find out what Hashem says, what Hashem does." So that's what he said he's going to do. He made himself a circle. He said, "I'm standing here until we get the rain." Your children depend on me. Right, because I'm like a son. Remember, a son's able to say things to a father that the minister cannot do. I'm not moving until you have mercy. So some rain came down. Again, we have some additions to the story from the Mishnah. This was not in the Mishnah. Right? A little tiny shmitchik of rain came along, and the students say, Rebbe, this is because the Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't want you to have to stand in the circle the rest of your life, and essentially have a very bad end. So, but the reality is, you should know, Rebbe, that this circle that you've gotten some rain is really only to amount to Yeshua that you could leave the circle, but it's really not enough rain. You should know. So he says, okay, no, this is not good enough. Amar like Alti. He says to the Rebbeinu Shalom, this is not what I asked for. Right? He says, I want rain that's going to go fill up all our cisterns, all the caves, all the places that hold the water. So Yordu B'daf, right? It started coming down powerfully. Achikot, we're on the widest lines now on Chav Gimel Amid Aleph. So Yordu B'daf, it came down with a big power. Achikot, Tipu V'tipu Kemale Pi Chavis. Until mamish, every drop of rain was like the size of like a chavis, like huge. And the rabbi said there was like not less than a look. I mean, like just enormous droplets. Rabbi, we're not so sure that we're going to survive this. The rain that is coming now is just enormous, and it's going to destroy the world. Like he says, Hashem, I didn't ask for this. I want nice rain, good rain, gishmei bracha. Yardik Tiknan, it came down appropriately at Sha'olu Kala'am, the Harabayas and Negasham. So everybody traveled from the Yerushalayim to the Harabayas because it was just simply too much rain. Remember, Harabayas being higher than the surrounding Yerushalayim. Not like we have it today, as I discussed back then. We're not getting into again. The same way you daven, the rain should come. Why don't you daven? Then it should leave. Because I think that I have a Kabbalah that you're not supposed to daven when there's too much rain. Again, the Mishnah didn't say it like that. So he says, bring to me a par haydah, meaning we're going to give a shalom, we're going to say thank you to the Bren Shalom for all this rain. If you live par haydah, so much to the other, in front of the Bren Shalom, they can't handle too much good, they can't handle too much bad. You get angry, then they can't manage. You give them too much hashpah of good, they can't manage. Please stop the rain and let there be peace in the world. The people went out and they enjoyed themselves. The sun was out and they got all the mushrooms that grow because of the big moisture. Fine. So that is the Gemara. Until now, again, sounds like at the end, right? Even though he accepts an acknowledgement that you're not supposed to mispal a Rebbe Taiva, he ends up davening, then there should be a stoppage of the rain because it was too much rain. So you see again, as I say, in Eretz Yisrael where they did that. Fine. And now we have a story within the story, right? The end of the Mishnah over there was what Shach for Shimon Shedach. Shimon Shedach writes to Chayni, and he says, "Ilmale Chayni anta gazrani alechanidoi." Right? If not for the fact that you were Chayni, I would have put you in Cherem She'ilu Shanim Kishnei Eliyo Shemafatches Kisham Biyad Shaliyo. Right? These years that we're not having rain, it's like Eliyo Navi, that he was holding the keys to the rain, meaning that it was not supposed to rain. It was a punishment for us. So you're now going and saying, God, I'm the one who's deciding. Right? So right? It's like Mami Shemegin Hashem. Hashem wants the Nabino rain because we're not doing good. We're not doing tshuva here. You're just coming along and making your own exceptions to the rule. What can I do? You're like a son that comes into the father, and the father does what the son wants, even if the son is not deserving, even if the father didn't want to do it. It's like you told your dad, Abba, take me to the hot baths. So now I want cold baths. Give me money, give me all the treats. Right? That the parents are so proud of such an amazing child to be able to talk like that to the Bereshit and get what they want. Fine. There's nothing more. So that's the end of the sort of the additional aspects of the Mishnah we see from this story, but nothing. I don't think anything is fundamentally changing over here. The Tana Rabbana. What are the Sanhedrin, right? The Bnei Lishkas Hagaz. So this is right. We know later on, in the end of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, before the 40 years before the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, the Sanhedrin leave, right? They're not sitting in Lishkas Hagaz anymore. They go traveling other places. They don't want to do Dinei Nefashis, all the sorts of reasons. But what do they send to Chani Amago? They said, "But take their Omer," right? Like a pasuk in Iyah, "V'yakim l'chava al derachecha noigaar." Right? Basically, the six are Omer. What you decree, that's what gets done. That's how great you are. So the Gemara now dashes a couple of things. The six are Omer atak izarta v'lman for Godesh Baruch Hu mekayim meracham l'mal. You are going to down here, and Hashem is mekayim what you say up there. The end of the pasuk that on your pathways are going to be shining light. It was a dark generation. It was no rain, and you enlightened it with your tefillas. Okay, right again. The next pasuk there in Eiv, right? What does it mean? The darsha yashafel, right? Shpilu was a down generation. It was very sad. No rain. Right? It's like geva. You lifted it up with your tefillas. Right? They're basically taking all these psukim and translating it to chayim. Right? What is that? Referring to Darsha Shach, the Maaseh Darsha Shach Ba'avayna Hashata B'Tfilas Adar that was brought down by sin. You saved it with your tefillas. Yimalet Enoch, you're able to save even those that were guilty. Enoch, meaning you're not clean, you're not innocent. Darsha Enoch, Maltasa B'Tfilas Adar that was not free of sin. You saved it with your tefillas. Benimla B'Var Kapecham. Right? What does that mean? You were able to save it with your ma'aseh yadav, with your tefillas, that essentially brought the rain for all the Jewish people. We have a couple minutes, so let's just, given how long Gilon Beis is, let's see if we can just run through the next story. An unbelievable ending to the life of Chayni Magno. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Kol Yom Sha'itzi Tzaddik. So as we finish the story of Chayni Magno, all the praise of Chayni Magno, unbelievable guy. Now, what is his end? The Gemara is an unbelievable story. Kol Yom Sha'itzi Tzaddik, I'm Mitzvah because he was very concerned about a pasuk. Right, he was mitzvah on this pasuk. Kol Yom Sha'itzi Tzaddik, I'm Mitzvah because Shamalis B'Shuv Hashem Etzion. Right? And we were like dreamers. What do you mean we're like dreamers? Right? It's the pasuk is telling us, as Rashi explains, that when they're going to come back from Bavel was a 7-year galus. Was like a dream. So he was bothered by the pasuk. It's like 70 years of galus is like a dream. Could anyone sleep for 70 years? Amar mi could deny him shivin shan b'chalma. Is it possible for somebody to have a 70-year dream? Meaning he's sleeping for 70 years? Not possible, such a thing. What's the lashon, the metaphor? The 7 years is like a dream. Obviously, the Pashup shot is it was like a dream, meaning he went fast. But he's saying literally, it's like a dream. Like somebody can actually sleep that long. One day he was going along the way. Saw a guy who was planting carobs. Hi, ad kamashanan. Right, Toin, how much years do these things need to be able to grow? Again, I'm not sure about the science of it. Amarle, ad shivin shinin, mamash needs 70 years to grow. Amarle, chitali, the chaya shivin shinin. You're going to live that long? He's an old guy, right? So what are you going to think? You're going to what are you planting this for? It's never going to grow. Amarle, hi gavra, alma bacharuva ashkachte. He says, I came into a world where I found carobs already planted for me. The same way my father's planted for me, I'm planting for my children. Yosef Kakar with the Socheni sat down. He started eating. Also, Shinsa, Imamashi was a big sleep came on him. Nim Adrele Mishanuse, right? The Ichse, there was some sort of a covering that was built up around him. Ma'anya Venim Shimish, and Imam sleeps for 70 years. He come when he got up. It's meaning now 70 years later. He doesn't know he's 7 years later. He just already went to sleep. You see somebody, taking off from the carob tree. Are you the one who planted the tree? He says, I'm the grandson of that guy. He says, I slept for 70 years. He sees his donkey that he had. Mamash has herds of donkeys. He has sired all these, family of donkeys. Basically, he goes to his house. He recognizes his house. He goes back to Amalahu. So they ask, is any of Chayni's sons alive? He says, he has no sons, but he has grandsons. So I'm not Chayni Amag. He says, I'm Chayni Amag. Then nobody believes him. Also, the base medrash. He goes to the base medrash. I'm going to Rabbanim. The Ka'amri here in Shmaitzin, Kevishani the Chayni Amag. Right? It's like these halachas that are being taught are so clear to us. Kevishani the Chayni Amag, like the years of Chayni Amag. The Chiyava Ayel base medrash. Kol Kushnav le Rabbanim had Mefark when we come to the base medrash, whatever the kasha the rabbi said, he could answer. Amalu, I'm not new. He said, I am him. Loy heminu. No one believed him. No one gave him covet. He mamish was having chalish adas. We just had it about Abai and Rav. Remember a couple of days ago. Boy rachmim best. They asked him for rachmanas on him, and he died. What does that remind us of the Gemara about B'Tzipei Dalet? For Rabbi Yochanan, when Mishlakish is killed by Rabbi Yochanan getting angry at him, so Rabbi Yochanan goes crazy. He has nobody to talk to. Ichabusi misusa, and also they daven on him that he should die. Same thing happened by Chayni Amago. Mamash, the same story, and it's the same reason. Right? Either have a chavrusa to learn what to talk to, or better not to be alive at all. All right, we have to stop over here.